Right now, you're probably better at something than you think you are. But there's also something you're doing right now, something important that you're far worse at than you believe. And the terrifying part is this: you have no way of knowing which one it is. That's not an insult. It's not about you specifically. It's about how every human brain is built. Somewhere in your life, in your job, your relationships, your hobbies, there's a skill you rate yourself highly on. Confident, capable, maybe even an expert. And in at least one of those areas, you are wrong. This happens to doctors, it happens to drivers, it happens to people arguing on the internet with total certainty about topics they learned about yesterday. Why does this happen to all of us? Why does the human mind seem almost designed to hide its own blind spots from itself? Picture someone at karaoke. He steps up to the microphone, grinning, completely relaxed. He's sung this song in his car 100 times. He knows he's good. The music starts. He opens his mouth. And what comes out is flat, offbeat, painfully loud in all the wrong places. Everyone in the room winces. Everyone except him. He finishes the song beaming, high-fiving his friends, convinced he just crushed it. His friends exchange glances. Nobody says anything. Why would they? He seems so sure of himself. But here's the strange part. His confidence didn't come from being good. It came from somewhere else entirely. It came from not knowing enough about singing to notice he was bad at it. That gap between how good someone believes they are and how good they actually are is not random. It has a name, a shape, and decades of research behind it. It's called the Dunning-Kruger Effect. And once you understand it, you'll start seeing it everywhere, possibly even in yourself. The Dunning-Kruger Effect describes a pattern. People with low ability at a task tend to overestimate that ability, and they do it by a lot. Not because they're arrogant, not because they're bad people, because the same skills required to be good at something are often the exact same skills required to recognize when you're not. Think about that for a second. To know you're bad at grammar, you need to understand grammar. To know your jokes aren't landing, you need a sense of comedic timing. To know your argument is weak, you need to understand logic well enough to spot the holes in your own reasoning. Incompetence doesn't just produce bad results. It removes the tool you'd need to notice the results are bad. This idea was formally tested in 1999 by two psychologists at Cornell University, David Dunning and Justin Kruger. They ran a series of experiments where participants completed tests on grammar, logic, and even humor, then estimated how well they thought they'd performed compared to everyone else. The pattern that emerged was almost eerie in its consistency. The lowest scoring participants, the ones who performed worst, consistently predicted they had scored above average. Some placed themselves in the top third. Meanwhile, something almost the opposite happened at the top. The highest performers, the ones who actually did best, tended to slightly underestimate themselves. Why? Because if a task feels easy to you, your brain assumes it must feel easy to everyone. Skilled people often assume their competence is common, so they don't feel special for having it. This is sometimes called the imposter phenomenon, and it sits right alongside Dunning-Kruger as the flip side of the same coin. But this isn't just a quirky psychology finding from one study. It connects to a much older, much broader concept in cognitive science, something Daniel Kahneman spent much of his career exploring. Kahneman, working alongside Amos Tversky, helped define the idea that the human brain doesn't process the world through careful, effortful logic by default. It relies on fast, automatic judgments, mental shortcuts researchers call heuristics. Here's the plain English version. A heuristic is a shortcut your brain uses instead of doing the hard work of actually analyzing something. It's efficient. It's usually helpful. But it also means your brain will often generate a confident feeling answer before it has actually earned that confidence through real understanding. Confidence, in other words, can be manufactured by your brain almost instantly, completely disconnected from actual skill. There's a term for this too. Metacognition. It simply means thinking about your own thinking. being able to step outside your own head and evaluate how well you actually understand something. And metacognition itself is a skill. It has to be learned, practiced, developed. If you never develop it in a specific area, you're left relying on a raw, untrained gut feeling to judge your own competence in that exact area. And gut feelings, as it turns out, are a terrible measuring stick. This is where it gets stranger. Because Dunning-Kruger isn't really about stupid people being overconfident. Everyone, including highly intelligent, highly accomplished people, experiences this exact blind spot the moment they step into unfamiliar territory. A brilliant surgeon might be a wildly overconfident investor. A gifted engineer might be a terrible communicator and have no idea. Expertise in one lane says nothing about awareness in another. So picture a completely different scenario. A manager, well-respected, excellent at her job for years, gets assigned to lead a new project involving data analysis, something slightly outside her usual expertise. She skims a few articles, watches a couple of tutorials, and within a week feels ready to make major decisions based on the numbers. She's not being reckless. She genuinely believes she understands enough. Her past competence in other areas has trained her brain to expect that confident feeling means competence. But here's the twist. A junior analyst on her team, someone who has spent years quietly studying statistics, actually understands the data far better. Yet that same analyst hesitates to speak up, second-guessing himself, assuming his manager, with her experience and confidence, must know more. The person who understands least is driving the decision. The person who understands most is staying silent. This isn't a coincidence. This is the Dunning-Kruger Effect playing out at the exact moment it matters most, in a room, during a real decision, shaping a real outcome. Researchers have found this same asymmetry across dozens of fields, from medicine to finance to everyday trivia knowledge. Justin Kruger later noted that this pattern seems to intensify specifically in areas where people have just enough exposure to feel familiar, but not enough depth to see the full picture. That thin layer of familiarity is often more dangerous than knowing nothing at all. Someone who knows nothing at least knows they know nothing. Someone with a small taste of knowledge often mistakes that taste for the whole meal. So what actually breaks this pattern? What allows someone to climb out of that early, overconfident stage? More information. Not motivation, not confidence-boosting affirmations, but actual exposure to how complex a subject truly is. As people learn more, they usually begin to see the edges of their own understanding for the first time, and their confidence dips. This is sometimes visualized as a curve. Confidence spikes early with minimal knowledge, crashes as complexity becomes visible, then slowly climbs back up as real competence develops. That dip has a nickname among researchers, sometimes called the Valley of Despair. It feels bad. It feels like getting worse at something you thought you understood. But it isn't a sign of failure. It's actually a sign of growth. It means your metacognition is finally catching up to reality. Which brings the question back to you. Somewhere in your life, right now, there's a subject, a skill, a belief, where you're standing at that early confident peak without realizing it. Maybe it's your understanding of your own health. Maybe it's your grasp of a political issue you feel strongly about. Maybe it's simply how good a driver, a listener, or a decision-maker you believe yourself to be. You can't fully escape this. No one can. But you can build a habit that makes it less dangerous. The next time you feel completely certain about something, especially something you learned quickly or casually, pause and ask yourself a simple question. How would I know if I were wrong? Not whether you're right. Whether you'd even be able to tell if you weren't. If you can't answer that question clearly, that uncertainty itself is information. It's often the first honest signal that your confidence has outrun your actual understanding. Seek out people who know more than you in that exact area and actually listen when they hesitate to agree with you. Discomfort That small dip in confidence, when a topic turns out to be more complicated than expected, isn't a warning sign to avoid. It's usually the exact moment real understanding begins. You started this not knowing which of your beliefs about yourself were accurate. You still don't, not entirely. Nobody ever fully does. But now you know why that gap exists, and more importantly, you know the one question that can start closing it. That singer at karaoke never got the polite silence in the room. You just did. What are you going to do with it? If this changed how you think about your own confidence, stick around. There's more of this kind of thing here, and it only gets stranger the deeper you go.